All right, well, good morning. My name's Slade. I am the moderator for this session, and I'm going to take just a minute to frame what we're going to talk about. I'm with Contextual Security. We're a risk and compliance advisory security services firm out of Knoxville, serving customers all over the nation. And we're going to talk today with this great panel we have, and I'll introduce them here in just a minute, about a trilemma. So Diane talked about that, Denise talked about that, and we're going to talk about what are some of these difficult things that we have to decide between? And sometimes there's an unfavorable option in there. And you've heard before, everybody's heard, if you have to pick something, is it going to be cheap, fast, or good? Pick two of those. And we kind of make a joke about that, but sometimes that's a reality. And in this one, we're looking for a different one. So we're looking at security. Can we have cybersecurity? Can we have that ability to trust what's going on? Can we have uptime? Can we have that availability that everybody wants all the time? And then can we have what we'll call future connectivity? So are we going to be able to use future things to do this? Because we talked about stuff being decades old at this point, and some of that it was great engineering. It lasts forever. But at the same time, it doesn't scale in the modern workplace, or it doesn't work for what we want it to do today. And the tension that comes out of that for these organizations is going to be different for each one of them, and that's why they're all here to present their perspective on it. But if you prioritize absolute security, you may sacrifice agility and speed and definitely future connectivity. Security is not too hard, right? Just unplug it and we're good to go. Everybody can do that where you work, right? No, you can't. Psalm 116:11, by the way, says all men are liars. So we're going to experience that a little bit together today. It sounds like they all nodded immediately when I said that. If you, you're gonna start lying now? No, I didn't know. Oh, women don't lie. Actually, that word was descendants. So yeah, it works both ways. But I appreciate you trying to get out of it on the gender language. If you prioritize your future connectivity and you just feed everything to AI, well, there's also some danger there, right? And if you don't think agentic AI is going to be involved in control systems, I just left another conference where Microsoft's building it. Get ready for it. Get ready to what data are you going to feed it? Do you know your data communication paths? So the outdated network map. That isn't going to work with this stuff. You got to know where data is going and what it's going to do. And you don't want to introduce new vulnerabilities that threaten uptime and safety. Uptime is just, for Volkswagen, oh my goodness, I can't imagine what that would look like. So what? Eric said it's a little bit important.
A little bit.
So the business wants connectivity, operations wants uptime, and security wants to reduce risk. And we ought to figure out how to walk through this together. And the challenge is that those goals don't always move in the exact same direction. So let me read these introductions real quick, and we're going to go with Eric first. So Eric's on the back right for us. So our first panelist sits at one of the most complex I'm going to read this, by the way. I learned I was the moderator just about 30 hours ago, 40 hours ago. So we're going to learn this together, okay? It's like band practice, so thanks for hanging out with me. But Eric sits at one of the most complex intersections in manufacturing cybersecurity. It's global manufacturer with a traditional assembly plant, but scaling things like EV production now. Managing connected vehicle platform where the product itself is a network endpoint. Who would have thought when you bought your first car that it was going to be a network endpoint in the future? I can't imagine. So if somebody had the foresight to think of that, that's amazing. But that, to me, we just live in the future. Also very old, though. So I'm easily impressed. Eric is the CISO and Director of Cybersecurity for Volkswagen Group of America and the entire North American region, a scope that covers the Chattanooga plant, assembling the Atlas, and the ID4, as well as the full North American enterprise across IT, OT, and connected vehicle infrastructure. His career spans AT&T, federal systems work, supporting the ATF and some other acronyms that are in here. I don't mean to diminish those, I'm just trying to get through it. And progressive security leadership within Volkswagen across product-related IT security, connected vehicle, and Industry 4.0. He holds a master's degree from Virginia Tech, and he's a Chattanooga community member, which means this region's competitiveness is personal to him. Join me in welcoming Eric to the panel. Thanks for being here. We're going in order of importance. Is that how you pick this? No, I'm just kidding. Everybody's reverse. We'll see. I'm last, so that's how I figured that. Paul, Trakian, Senior Manager of Cybersecurity, Operations, and Incident Response for the Tennessee Valley Authority. Incident Response at TVA. A little bit of responsibility there. If you want to understand what's truly at stake when critical infrastructure networks fail, you ask someone who defends those networks at scale. And TVA definitely does that. I've worked with TVA in the past. I was just reminding Paul, I met him years ago when he and his brother were in opposite rooms. And I meet Stephen Trakian in one room. I walk in the other. There's Paul Trakian. I'm like, wait a minute.
It's a small family business.
Yeah. I was like, that can't be common. I guess you have to be named Trakian to work here. It's not true though, right?
No.
Yeah. Lots of other people work there. Yeah, so their definition of uptime means the light stays on. The lights here stay on in 7 states. It's a little bit of responsibility with that position right there. He's the senior manager, like I said. So it's one of the nation's largest public power companies operating a fleet spanning nuclear, hydro, natural gas, solar. Am I missing anything there in your generation?
Some things that.
You got any wind?
Battery storage.
Storage. All right. So now, we're doing that. And he serves industrial customers across the Tennessee Valley, many of whom are in this room. His effort puts him at the front line of protecting OT environments where the standard IT playbook doesn't apply. You can't patch a running turbine the way you patch a laptop. And taking a system offline isn't always an option when it affects hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses. Welcome, Paul, with me. Next to Paul, we have Brittany Day. You are the IT business manager at Colonial Chemical, local company here. I think we were commiserating about being the little guys on stage. So you have a little different resources. So 150 to 200 people there, and then global billions on the back row back here, and then TVA and Eaton, obviously. And we're sitting here like, wow, that's a different scale of production and protection. So we heard this morning from a federal agency, some major utilities here, a big production, and oh boy, this is not right. So I'm going to skip some of this, okay? Because we had to change the itinerary just a little bit here, the agenda. So what do you focus on most of the time? Brittany, I'm going to let you introduce yourself a little bit here because this is a little bit off.
Oh, hey, I run the IT department for an international chemical company, and it's brought a world of differences and huge opportunities, like building IT infrastructures in Saudi Arabia, but doing it from Chattanooga. Pro tip, language is not the only barrier there, but it's all about cybersecurity and accessibility on the plant floor.
Yeah. And one of the things it has in here is that, you're a specialty chemical manufacturer, and you have to do, regulation is part of what you have to do, safety, critical in an environment where safety is paramount. And then your network to connect both business systems and production processes. I would argue almost everyone's do that just based on my experience as a pen tester. Every time somebody tells me there's an air gap, I find that there might have been, but there wasn't anymore. And this is where it's not just an IT problem for you if there's a cybersecurity problem. Yours crosses the boundary into safety really quickly, especially with the chemical manufacturing. So Brittany navigates the IT-OT boundary that the rest of us talk about theoretically every single day. So she really has to do it day to day. And her perspective is the one that may resonate most directly with most people. Just again, being the little guy in the room, we don't all get to work for giant companies or enterprise operations, and she'll have a unique perspective on that. So because her challenges are your challenges, welcome Brittany with me. All right, these other three are defending connected things, and Stephen is building them. So he's a certified machinery safety expert, Industry 4.0 digital factory engineer at Eaton, a global power management company whose products sit inside the factories, substation, and facilities that the rest of this panel is trying to secure. So I guess you're the fall guy today, it sounds like. It sounds like we're going to blame you when things go wrong. Not true. Stephen works at the design layer of smart manufacturing, integrating connected systems, digital controls, and the Industry 4.0 architecture into production environments. This is an inside-out perspective. So we get this unique perspective from Stephen at Eaton. So he'll be building connectivity while understanding the security implications of every design decision. And this is what makes his voice on the panel pretty distinct. So welcome, Stephen, with me. Okay, you're all ready to answer, right? So we're going to let you answer as you want at first, and then if you're just quiet and stare at me, I'll call on one of you, okay? A little bit about me. If we do ask questions and people just stare at me, I do lead the biblical counseling team at my church, so I'm super comfortable in an awkward silence, all right? I used to teach high school, so if you just sit and look at me, I will sit and look at you until we get something going back and forth here. All right, so this first section here is strategic and framing kind of questions. And we're going to start with, manufacturing is becoming increasingly connected. Obviously, day to day, that's just changing rapidly. We've got cars as network endpoints now. It's mind-boggling. What cybersecurity risks concern you most today, and how have those risks evolved over the last 5 years? So what concerns you most today, and how has that changed in the last 5 years? Maybe there was something else 5 years ago that wasn't quite on the radar, but is now.
So, go ahead.
Very easy. Everything is converging to the cloud. It's not sitting in your factory anymore. And so your data there is no edge. The edge does not exist. That's how I would summarize that.
Yeah, the loss of the perimeter is very interesting, isn't it? And not only for the car being the endpoint, but just in enterprise IT in general, not even in manufacturing.
For where your data is stored.
Yeah.
There is no edge. So.
And this is where Brittany may have a unique perspective, because being smaller, more agile, she may actually know where her data is stored.
I do. I
yeah,
do know
right.
where all of it's stored.
The bigger you get, the harder it is to define those boundaries and where they are.
We know where it's at. It's just hard to keep track of.
I believe it. Brittany, you were going to say something today.
So just 5 years ago, all I had to do when we were putting in a new PLC was to create some VLAN for network segmentation and make sure everyone had MFA. But now everything needs read-write access to your manufacturing software, your enterprise software, your cloud. And so when someone like, Rockwell Automation comes out with a vulnerability, then it ruins that whole day, which just happened in April, by the way. So suddenly it's not just your plant floor, it's all of your everythings that are being impacted, which is the bad.
The bad. I
It's
like that.
the bad,
Okay,
not bad, the
I may
bad.
actually make a t-shirt out of that. It's the bad.
It's the bad.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I really like what both of you guys are bringing forward, because we really have to live in a supposedly zero trust that no device supports. So a lot of the frameworks that people are pushing down on us do not make sense for some of the facilities we're trying to apply them to. So whether it be maybe it is a PLC or a relay in our case or something similar, these are appliances. They can't install whatever agent is supposed to be applied on this thing to protect it, right? And so I think that the attack surface has expanded because of the need for cloud, because management pushes efficiency down on us. And then we also have to have the risk of the classification of that data is somehow more complex now. So when you're looking at a drawing that shows here's how your different devices are connected, in the past, we would keep that on an internal share drive and very few people had access to it. Now it's on SharePoint, right? And everyone has access to it. So I think everything from paradigms that are accepted as the next step that don't apply to the data classification itself are two things I think have changed very quickly in the last few years.
Yeah, some fun moments I heard in that were, executives asking for things. So you build all these great networks, and then some board member or some real senior executive is like, I want to see the output of this production run on my iPad at home or on the plane. And now, so this is how air gaps go away, by the way, because you have to export that data out somehow and get it onto someone's iPad, and it's coming directly off the plant floor or off of a device. Stephen, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I would say that what I see is more the vulnerability of the human element with AI. I see a lot of us wanting to use these more advanced tools without understanding how that data is managed, where that data is managed, and stuff like that. So I see a risk from the expansion of the risk at the human element. It was just passwords and don't click on the phishing email. Now it's don't upload your stuff to a random AI chat bot to be able to summarize your meeting notes or your production report at the end of the day, and just kind of help us kind of align better with, train our employees in this new environment with AI to say, hey, pay attention. It's not just phishing and doing your emails anymore. It's also these tools themselves are collecting and storing your information now.
So could I ask a question of the crowd? How many people have engineering that is at least partially remote, like can work from home? Okay, that's the other thing I would mention that was not something we had engineered into our designs. COVID changed security. It allowed people to do some of these access. We never had these remote access holes punched in our security until COVID forced us. And now we're seeing a great reluctance to come back. Now, you know, a lot of us have been, and I'm sure you guys as well, like the operating side of it has went back immediately. You can't do these things from home, right? But the engineering side, some of the design side hasn't. And now that they've tasted the good life, recruiting is hard and everything else to pull people back in. So we're seeing a lot of pressure on this exposed surface area of having those particularly, you know, like high profile designs and everything else has to be cloud native now. So
Yes, it does.
Think so.
Shocker, nobody wants to go to work. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
not wearing pants. Yeah, sure.
I have to double check every time now. So I've worked at home for almost 20 years now, and
It's called the business mullet, right?
correct.
Button
Business
down
mullet.
and then, yeah.
How many people have a shirt hanging in a home office somewhere you can throw on for a meeting? Yeah, the rest of you are lying. I know you do. I know you do. Okay. Great answers. Heard multi-factor authentication thrown out there a couple of times. Obviously, there's great workarounds for that now where you can interact. And you know, if you want to look at a tool called like RealFish, it's made specifically to bypass things like MFA, and token guessing has been around. There's a super old hacker tool called Kane-Enable, and it was able to guess RSA secure IDs, 15 years ago. It's always interesting when we start relying on a certain layer of security. All right, next question. As organizations balance security, scalability, and operational uptime, how do you determine where to invest cybersecurity resources for the greatest impact?
I want to hear Eric's.
Basics first. So we're talking about manufacturing. You have to know what assets are on that network, 100%. And in today's world, there's a lot of vendors that come in third party into your plant floor, and they want to put things like vending machines for gloves or safety equipment. You have logistics companies that come in with IoT devices on their pallets and all their tracking, and they say, hey, can I hop on your network? Can I hop on your network?
Sure.
And that's probably your biggest area of defense, is actually knowing what you have. So we've invested heavily in asset management and asset control, what goes on our networks. We have a very robust process. If you want to touch one of our networks, you have to meet our requirements. We don't meet yours. And so that's one of the things we've invested heavily on to prevent unknown things just showing up. And of course, when something unknown shows up, you can just extrapolate what could happen from there. So
That's excellent. And I can't tell you how many times we've seen doing risk assessments or penetration tests where it's a vendor account that has privileges it doesn't need. And before Server 2019, I don't know if anybody knew this, if you're using Windows as your authentication mechanism, if you had a privileged account, your password policy didn't apply. So if you were an enterprise admin, for example, you did not have to have the 8-character account or the 12-character account. You could actually make a 6-character password, and lots of vendors did. Anybody else, where you invest in your cybersecurity resources? How are you making that decision?
I think a good one for us is one. I'm jealous that you have asset inventory. It's a constantly moving target. We pay a lot of money to certain vendors to get that 80% right. But besides that, it's kind of a risk register, right? So like, how much of an impact is it going to have? We have limited budget, limited people, so we have to look at these high value assets that we have, protect them in a certain way, and if we can, trickle down and pick. And the challenge with that is we have an intel team that'll come by and say, here's the different kind of attacks that are happening. Ransomware, big deal, right? It's been happening everywhere. We had 3 LPCs popped in 3 months with the same ransomware. So we had to actually take some of the money and time we're spending on defending ourselves, according to the risk register that we have, and spend it communicating with the local power companies to say, here's what's happening, here's how they get you. Let me give you a quick example, and I hand it off to the rest of them. There was a user who clicked on a SharePoint link. Within 8 minutes, his token had been stolen. Someone was clicking around on the web page, looking at all his email. And they didn't just click on it randomly. They knew exactly where to go for the cloud admin panel to go and see, did he have that role where he could actually change things, right? Could he go in and send emails to other people? It's within 8 minutes, right? That's super fast. So a lot of these things that are happening, they're kind of trying to pick off your suppliers, right? Talk about Volkswagen. They have this enormous plant. I bet their security is really good. But I bet some of the ones that are outside of them, the smaller shops, they do not have the resources to support those kind of things. So when we looked at our risk register as a way to prioritize where we're putting our funds, make sure you don't leave out some of your partners and provide them pro bono help of this is where we see things happening. Because we have an Intel team, maybe they don't. So provide those resources in a way that doesn't compromise your own processes, but still allows you to be protected from your external.
Yeah. So Brittany, he's talking about resources. Paul's talking about resources. Eric's got different resources. Eaton has different resources than you. You might have a few less than these giant companies. So how do you prioritize this?
You know, the deeper you get into this conversation, the more expensive it gets. So you start with your self-healing rings and your paired PLCs, but somewhere around fraud resistant SCADA servers, you have to start deciding what endpoints you're going to secure and do it well. And so you got to get safety, you have to get operations in the room, and you have to have your CFO in the room. And it's starting to become a math problem. What is the cost of downtime? Is it a safety risk? Is it a financial risk? And then the real goal is making sure that management is part of that decision. It shouldn't be an IT call. It should be a business decision. We've decided we understand this risk and we are going to accept this risk.
That is great. One of the things we've realized we've had to shift doing is we can't just be doing things from the hacker perspective anymore. We have to do things from the financial downtime aspect. So we actually quantify, if you're doing a tabletop with us, for example, we quantify it financially as the tabletop goes on. And that gets CFOs finally are like, you know what? Eric does need that budget that he put out there. Brittany does need that budget that they put out there because they can see, and that Clint talked about it as well in his opening.
TVA doesn't need it
Just
now.
Brittany and Eric.
Yeah,
Do the
exactly.
best I can.
Yeah, not well. TVA, who's going to, your customers aren't leaving, man.
I don't know. MOTW in Memphis really tried here.
Listen,
recently.
I know they try.
You know, then they got a board member. So
About
I think we're
50% of our clients are electric co-ops, and we always tell them the reputation risk is a little different for you than it is for, say, the law firms and the manufacturers and things like that. But doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't care. I've seen the TVA team at work before, and they definitely work hard to do that. I'm going to move into the operational and actionable stuff here, and this will be probably more on your lines as you're developing this stuff, Stephen. But how many manufacturers operate a mix of legacy equipment and modern connected systems. That doesn't sound familiar to anybody, I'm sure. What practical steps can they take to improve OT ICS security without disrupting production? So, Stephen, you're building these things.
So what I would say is, based off what Eric was just mentioning, know your inventory, know what assets you have on your network. And if you're at the point of trying to determine, hey, what do I need to do? Critical assets are a good place to start, but passive network monitoring, if you're not doing anything, just monitor your network. Make sure that you know what's there and how it's communicating, what it's communicating to. If you don't know those things, then you're pretty much just taking a shot in the dark of what you're trying to tackle and what you're trying to protect.
That is great. Just capturing network flows, by the way, TCP streams, outbound data exfiltration. Your HR people probably don't need to ever use SSH outbound, for example. That has been one of my favorite things in the world in my 25 years of doing penetration testing. That's great advice. What else?
I will mention that we have an overbuilt power grid. It was built back in the 70s, and it's actually did really well for the next 50 years. And then AI came and literally blew things up. And so having those different generations of relays that we do not go in and update even firmware or change out. You have to live in this world of accepted risk for some of this. Completely agree that when it comes to the field assets, we walk them down once a year to make sure we know what we have and what level it's at. But a multi-vendor situation is difficult, right? So whether you have on our side, you may have Allen Bradley PLCs over here at this substation. You may have Siemens over here in Cybertech. You may have 4 different vendors for relays of different generations that are older that do not support certain protocols, right? So they may not have even a network stack on them. They may be purely serial, right? So what you have to have is a flexible security environment. And that starts with talk to your SMEs. So a lot of times I think there's that guy who's been working on this station. He knows everything about that station, no matter what your drawings say about it. This is the reality. So in our space, we have installed things that help us on layer 2 and seeing what's on there, something gets added. But realistically, if you get to the person first, they'll give you the best information about that particular location. So we have an actual outreach organization that is part of cyber, and it's their full-time job to just be there. So a station gets cut in, we'll have nuclear refueling outages at Sequoia, great time to go by and just, kind of talk to people. They can't touch their equipment. They brought in a bunch of contractors to swap things out. So right now, it's a great time, right, to go talk to them and say, like, hey, what's new? What are you guys working on? So for us, it is a people component is the only way we can kind of get around this multi-generational, multi-decade setup we have.
That's good.
So I'm going to go back to some things you said here about on the floor. And I think anyone that works in a manufacturing floor knows that you have physical equipment. We have presses for metal presses, right? These things have a 25 to 35 year lifespan. The IT component that came with it is nothing in cost, but it controls the whole unit. Well, that's probably running Windows 3.1 still. And it works. It works fine. So you'll never go into a boardroom and say you need to replace your $30 million press because the Windows device that controls it is a risk to me. So, this is all over the world, not just here in Chattanooga, but what we do with that, of course, is we have islands. We segmentate like crazy. And when you're mentioning SSH or other just random ports that are open, those are turned off we turn them off. Just turn them off. If you tell us what you need, that's what you get, not the other way around. Turn everything on and we'll see what we use.
Please take notes on that. That's so great.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
So that's one way we prevent that blast radius, or if something does happen, it's segmented off. It's need to know principle, need to talk principle. And that's how we sort of prevent that, because you're never going to prevent everything. It's more about limiting when something does happen. How do you respond to it?
Don't trust vendors, baseline your own equipment. So
100%.
if you have someone who understands Nmap or something else, they will say that they have turned this thing off. They probably have not. So
Hey, I believe you, Stephen, when you say you do it. Okay, I love the way both of these guys immediately transfer the risk back to the vendor. That was great, which is also something you got to do in your position. You do have to accept certain risks sometimes and say, hey, that one is on the vendor, and unfortunately, you get to bear that sometimes, Stephen.
it was misconfigured, is what the vendor was.
It's a feature. It's a feature.
Yeah.
Looking at we're moving to ransomware here.
Wow.
Ransomware remains a major threat. I think everybody thinks about this and hears about it pretty regularly. We had what Clint just told us. Dwell time is still, your network's actually compromised for months. Still, we're still not detecting it for months. So ransomware remains a major threat. If a manufacturer discovered an attack today, what are the most important actions leadership should take during the first 24 hours?
I can tell you for the first 3 hours. Easy. So it should already be in your business continuity plan. If you don't already have one, just stop listening to me immediately and go do that. But after you call your cyber insurance company, after you call legal, you call a meeting, an all hands meeting for everyone impacted. You start by saying, we don't know what's happened yet, so there's nothing to report. But your company handbook says you are not allowed to post anything on social media or talk to any news outlet. You need to protect your reputation. The second thing you do is you tell people how they can continue working. Your network's down, that's fine. We have this off-site place where you can have internet access. Keep working, even if it's writing something down. So you're protecting your bottom line. The next thing you do is you tell where the IT team is, and then you forbid anyone from going there other than to bring pizza, because you need to make sure you're back up and running. And then you set expectations. You'll hear from me at this time, even if I have nothing to say. So you need to really reduce the chaos risk. And then that way you can continue to work to the best of your ability.
Eric, it looked like you were going to jump in.
Yeah, for us, it's more socializing our executives on what to do when this happens. And so we do a lot of tabletop exercises, which are really fun to go into high executives and say, you've been owned by ransomware. Do you want to pay? And then watch them discuss. That's really a fun event if you haven't done that. I really enjoy those. No, but it's, I think the previous presenter showed a thing about panicking. That's the first thing not to do is, like Brittany said, be well prepared in advance, because it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it happens, right?
Sure.
And then once all the executives are socialized to it, we have a crisis committee. It's the bat phone. We say, hey, we've had this thing. And they've had experience doing tabletops. They know the flow. They know what's going to happen. Doesn't mean they act accordingly because, well, this is a real one. Holy crap, But that's what we do. And we try to keep them aware of it. It's like doing fire drills and everything else. We're just like that. Now you got to do your cybersecurity drill as well.
Yeah, train like you fight. It'll help you out a
Yep.
lot. That's good.
And protect your people. I like what you said about do not let anyone in unless they're bringing pizza. So your executives will come in and they will demand answers every 17 minutes.
Oh,
And it will
Seconds.
keep seconds. It'll keep your people from doing work. So as managers and leaders in your own spaces, do your best to, and I think we do this as well. It's like we will report out at 17:30. We will report out at 19:30 or top of the hour, and there's a separate bridge. Do not let your executives get on the working functional bridge.
Oh man, that's great advice. And especially you, Paul.
Unless you're Eric. But
No, we do the same. I am the face to the executive team. So I
Right.
take the beating and I just buy the pizza for the guys doing the real work. That's what I do.
That's
So.
perfect. Yeah, and Paul, you can't take stuff offline.
No.
So you're not just going to go unplug some turbine. We're just
do not-
removing all this.
And we do not encourage that at all, right? So just from a forensic standpoint, you have to train your people. Don't turn it off. I know you feel like you just got a spider on your shoulder and you want to shake it off, and that's the first thing, and you hear Taylor Swift in your head. But really what you're trying to do is retain evidence, right? So if you're talking to your cyber team, they'll be like, do you have it with you right now? They're going to want it. And they'll save it off. They'll take an image. You can keep doing what you're doing. But going through the tabletops that Brittany mentioned will train your people to fight that first urge of turn everything off, unplug everything. I'll say when we were working with some of these LPCs and we said, hey, we have a forensics team. Do you have an image? We'll happily run through that for you and tell you maybe what happened. And they're like, oh, what? We just turned it off and we just, reinstalled everything. Great. But now I don't know how to protect you in the future. I don't know how they got in and what they did. So when you're going through these processes, be sure that you've run through those steps, those tabletops, to say there are precursors before the knee jerk happens.
So I just got my 5-minute warning. So
Oh.
I'm going to skip to the last question real quick, and we'll do some speed dating here real quick. But this is our framework and compliance question. Which standards, frameworks, or guidance should manufacturers be paying the closest attention to today?
IEC 62443.
62443, IEC. Any other?
There's too many. And the reason I say that, I came out of a meeting this morning. We're talking about California has new regulations for manufacturing. We're a worldwide manufacturer, so I have to deal with UNECE out of Europe. We export to the South Korea market. They have their own thing, and they're all a little bit of a variation of 27001 or one of the IEC things. So we are constantly fighting that battle, and it's ever evolving. There isn't a set strategy for that stuff.
You know what
I
we
can
need is
say-
a new standard to manage all the standards.
The
Exactly.
XKCD with the 17.
Yeah.
I will say for us, there's all these other, like NERC, SIP, and whatever. The NIST CSF 2.0 has something that kind of has translated between different industries. It just gives you a kind of generic framework that your executives should be naturally able to adopt, even if underneath it you have the ISOs and the IECs and the 27,000 series and all that as well. But we've had some success in communicating with some of our other vendors and our direct serve customers like Volkswagen with the CSF 2.0 framework.
Very good. Brittany, do you have a favorite?
you know what? We do it a little differently. I'd love to say we have a team that makes sure we're always NIST compliant, but the truth of the matter is our cyber insurance policy comes out
Oh, nice.
and it says, hey, you need EDR. And it's so much less expensive to implement and maintain threat detection than it is to pick up the increased cost. So we let our cyber insurance company back us into compliance.
Nice, yeah. And how many people remember when your cyber insurance application was 3 questions?
Oh,
And now it's 17 pages, and 15 of them are things that are exculpatory for the insurance agency. But you still got to have it. Still got to have it.
it's
So
an audit. Yeah.
any questions from the audience? Yeah, we
Yeah,
got
we
right
have some
here.
questions here.
Always have questions. So in the environment that I play in, critical infrastructure, and then now Department of Defense, Department of Energy, manufacturing, we have CMMC and other rules. The biggest thing that we keep catching is people have older PLCs, no idea what's on it, no idea how to back it up. Any suggestions, any guidance for people who are running that older stuff? And then how do you protect if it breaks tomorrow?
We have critical spares. That's just a hot swap replacement we have to keep. That gets more and more expensive and harder. We have to have firmware that we do have to know. So it's a NERC CIP regulation. We have to follow it. But in general, standardize your protocols as best you can. So like we'll run a lot of DNP3, for example. That means I can keep operations up even when I slam something new in because I have to. But test your critical spares.
Any more? Super shy. All right. Well, as we kind of land the plane here, we're looking at security, future connectivity, and uptime, right? And that's the battle you fight. So appreciate everything that you 3 do to do that, and what you do, Stephen, to build it, because they're using your products and you're getting good feedback from them, and it's always interesting what you can find out there. So in closing, I'll ask one question to you all. So as we go visit critical infrastructure places, when we test a substation, for example, let's say an electric substation, doesn't really matter if it's distribution or transmission. What percentage of those do you think are on the internet? And when I say on the internet, that means someone can plug in a laptop and send a Teams message anywhere in the world. If you took a guess, what do you think it would be?
50%.
Who said 50%? That is correct. So that's our experience. 50% of them are on the internet. And that, by the way, is always 100% a surprise to everybody standing there. Us as the vendor, them as the customer, it's always interesting. And then we do have this dilemma of legacy products, right? And let's keep in mind, that is good engineering. The fact that they still work, the fact that you can still use that, the fact that you still have Windows 3.1 and it's functioning is great. If you don't know why that's a problem, what I need you to know is that before Windows 7 came out, when an authentication box popped up for Windows, you could just hit escape and you were logged in. Okay. I remember so many things. I was testing a plant one time in Oklahoma, and I went in there and I sat down. How I got in there is a whole different story. We won't get into that. That was kind of the red team aspect of it. But I sat in an operator terminal and I opened a config.ini on an old, we won't name the vendor here, but there is a CVE for it now. And I just learned that anybody sitting there could decode any password for any of the control system. And man, if that boiler started to fire, people would be in trouble. It would create a hydrofluoric acid cloud, and everybody within a few hundred miles would not be alive. And that's why that's still a risk, and you have to put these other compensating controls in place. So grateful to these folks for doing that. Thank you to Peak Performance for having us out here to do this. And man, thank the panel for me as we're finish up here.